my second short video to come after my trip to Fregate Island in the Seychelles. And just behind me is a Magpie Robin. Now the Magpie Robin, at one time there was only 12 birds left in the world and they all lived on Fregate Island. I'll be speaking with Anna Zora, the Conservation and Sustainability Manager of the island, who will tell us more about how this bird was brought back from the brink. How endangered was the Magpie Robin here on Fregate?
So the Seychelles Magpie Robin was very endangered at a certain stage. So in the 60s, there were only about 12 birds left in the whole world, and they were only here on Fregate Island. So, I mean, as everybody can understand, 12 birds is not many. And then thanks to the conservation effort that we put on preserving the species, so we managed to grow the population back up.
What are the numbers now?
So now in the whole of Seychelles, we estimate just over 400 birds. So as I said, the Seychelles Magpie Robin used to exist only on Fregate Island. Thanks to the growth in population because of the conservation effort, the population started growing, allowing also for translocation into other islands. So today, the Seychelles Magpie Robin is present in total of 5 islands of Seychelles. And here on Fregate Island, of course, we still have the biggest population in the world of this bird. And we counted last year's census about 225 birds.
How many birds are altogether in the Seychelles?
In the Seychelles, we estimate about just over 400 birds.
So when it was at that critical level of around 12 birds, do you know if many people thought that this species will never exist anymore?
Yes, probably yes. And that's where they decided, to put some effort into saving the Seychelles Magpie Robin from extinction. So, in fact, the population reached 12 birds in the 60s, and then little by little, some efforts were put together, like protecting the bird, restoring the habitat, putting nest boxes up, which came a little bit later. But so I can also tell you that another thing that was critical to save the Magpie Robin was the rat eradication again. So those animals, alien species that are not supposed to be here, like in other parts of the world, they're very bad for the environment. So they can really do lots of damage, like they did for the Seychelles Magpie Robin, for example. And once we managed to get rid of those species, so like the rats and the cats, so the population started going back up. So that was definitely critical to save the species.
I mean, you are here with a team of conservation staff. What things are you doing sort of on a day-to-day basis, to sort of look after the Magpie Robins?
So, of course, we have a monitoring plan which is in place all the time. So we're always checking on the birds. So all the birds, or as many birds as we can, are ringed. So they are marked with a little ring with a unique number. So we can identify each single bird. We also monitor the nest boxes. So we have different territories for the birds, and in each territory we have at least one nest box, and that's just to help the bird nesting. We know for sure that also the birds, they nest naturally as they do by themselves in cavities in trees, which is happening on the island, which is a very good sign again. But then also through the nest boxes we manage also to somehow check how the breeding success is of the birds. And so we check those nest boxes every 2 weeks, because somehow the cycle of the birds is about every 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks we managed to monitor quite well, you know, if there is an egg, and if after 2 weeks that egg has hatched, then we'll have a little chick, and then we monitor the chick after 2 weeks again to make sure, okay, it's getting into a polar stage, and we get ready then to ring the bird and make sure that it gets included in our population number.
What sort of area would a territory be, for instance?
So the Seychelles Magpie Robin are quite territorial birds, so we have managed also to map those territories. But as you mentioned, yes, they are all over the island. But of course, there are some kind of habitats that they prefer. So again, the habitat restoration on the island has been key into the population growth as well. Of course, there are some habitats that they don't like habitats that are overgrown or so, because they are insectivores, so they eat, you know, what they can find on the ground. So what they enjoy a lot is being close to the giant tortoises, because what happens is that it has been observed is that the giant tortoises, when they move the ground, and so the bird go behind the giant tortoise looking for the insects that come out of the ground that has been moved by the tortoise. So that's a kind of symbiosis somehow, very important. And again, it makes you understand that, you know, it's not only about the bird, so you have to have the base to have a healthy population, so the habitat, the tortoises, and the insects, and all of that.
We're doing this interview sort of basically under a couple of coconut palms, but those coconut palms really shouldn't be here, should they? They're not part of the environment here on Fregate Island, are they?
Yeah, correct. So the coconuts were introduced not only on Fregate Island, in Seychelles in general, during the coconut plantation time, so in the 1800 about. And it was a very, very big industry about the copra industry here in Seychelles, and Fregate was part of it. But what happened is that when the people stopped looking after the coconut plantation, each nut that falls off of a tree is a new tree that grows. So that has created a bit of a problem for the environment, because of course we found ourselves with overgrowth coconut forest, which you know, it's high maintenance, of course, and also normally in general in nature everywhere in the world, when you have a monoculture, nature doesn't like it. So if you go into a monoculture, it's very quiet, you see very, very few animals, so it's no good.
So it was not good for the magpie robin?
Correct. It wasn't good for the magpie robin, because the ground was covered by those nuts, the leaves, and so they didn't have access to the insect that they need to eat. And also, of course, from a nesting point of view, the coconut trees are not good for nesting for the magpie robin.
Is there a specific time of year where they like to breed, or is it throughout the season?
So they breed throughout the season. So generally, though, we have noticed more chicks and eggs around April, May, this sort of period. But I must say that we always and continuously we find eggs in the nest boxes. So
is it quite exciting when you find that a nest box has been brought into use?
All the time, yes. So even after many years, it's still very exciting when we see an egg, when we see a little chick inside that box. So yes, even if it's a small difference, but it's still a difference, you know. So for that species in particular, you know, to know that there is one bird more in the population, it's a big impact already. So, and to know that we are protecting that bird in particular, it's very important, and makes you feel important that you're really, really having an impact in the conservation on the island and on the ecosystem. The population of Seychelles magpie robin was restarted only from 12 birds. So when you come onto the island, one thing that is quite striking is that you find those birds everywhere. And you think, well, are you sure is it one of the rarest birds on Earth? Because, you know, you really see them everywhere.
The island is of course famous for its magpie robins, But there are also some other very lovely birds here. We have an example here. These are the fairy terns, the white little birds. We've got the darker birds here with these are the noddies. There is also some very lovely bird, and especially when you see it in flight, which is a tropic bird. And there's also little small coloured birds around the place. The Madagascan fodies are very colourful indeed, and there are lots of other bird life here on the island. So it is mostly about the magpie robin, but there's plenty more to see here, and if you're into birding, then this is a must place to visit.